Knight d4, that's a fork. And when the king moves, that's a fork. Greetings, chess friends. We are back today with an excellent attacking concept. And this one is so simple. Where is the best place to put your pieces? I would really say for the knight, there are a lot of good squares. You could land on squares in the center like d5, an outpost at d6, knight g5, or e5 can start an attack. But in my opinion, the best attacking square for a knight is right here, if you're white, on f5. If you are the black pieces, the equivalent would be f4. I mentioned in the thumbnail to the video, it was kings, bishop, 5. If you know the old descriptive notation, that's how you would describe this move for both players. And why is this knight so good here? Well, when the king is castled, there are just strategic squares that you can hit. Obviously, g7 is a threat. e7, which is check, knight h6. Sometimes the situation occurs with the pawn on h6, and there could be a sacrifice with a knight or a bishop. And so this knight provides so many positives. Let's see how it combines well with other pieces. With the queen and knight being the best team in chess, this is an easy one to understand. Queen g5, immediately threatening checkmate. A great attacking combination here. Also moves like knight h6, check, are safe. Knight e7, also a move like knight takes g7, possible, as king takes, queen g5, king h8 the only move, and then we capture. Of course, we don't have a king, we don't have any other pieces, but you can imagine these little snippets from a game happening. Knight on f5 has magical attacking powers. Let's see some of the great masters use this tool, and let's start with the man himself, Paul Morphy. Here with his knight entrenched on f5 and a nice battery behind it. Remember, we said that a sacrifice could be possible in these cases. Here, Morphy lands knight takes g7. A really nice combination, and that about ends the game here. It goes on for a few more moves. The knight bounces back, but clearly here, white is in the driver's seat. So an easy one there to understand. Let's just be clear, if king had captured, queen would have captured the knight, and white is really just completely winning. Perhaps here, rook f5 or queen g5. Really good attacking moves. Just winning material there. Easy one. Let's see another from the olden days, and this one, Anderson, and the year I have is 1858. Showing the game from the early stages here, and this game looks pretty normal. d4, capture, capture, bishop b4 check, and I think even here d5 is still the best move today. Castles, and here knight f4. Knight f4. Anderson understood the attacking potential, but we don't have any pieces just yet. I think white would be hesitant to play a move like g3, breaking up their kingside. Queen f6, maybe could have taken this pawn with the knight. Knight f1, and here comes the haymaker. Knight takes g2. A little confusing, though. The king can take. There's no rook really behind this. And queen takes f3. Anderson, tactical genius. This gets ignored, but we have to ask if he takes it. Knight d4, that's a fork. And when the king moves, that's a fork. Unbelievable tactical awareness there in black, completely winning. Queen takes f3, just a stunner. King g1 was the real game. Knight takes d4 anyway. Black completely in the driver's seat. Lets things get a little fancy here with b5. Kind of like that move, but the engine does not. Instead recommending a simpler looking bishop d7 with the same idea. b5, bishop d3. Actually, white is threatening mate all of a sudden. Pawn f5, queen takes knight. And the idea behind b5 was to get this bishop to b7. This diagonal really cannot be guarded. Two checkmates threatened. And all of this because that knight ripped open the king side. Anderson wins. Let's see a more modern game, and this is from two grandmasters. I've actually shown this game in another video, but it is one of my all-time favorites. You can probably guess from this moment where our knight is heading, but the execution is still fun. Knight f4, surprise. Pawn takes knight, rook g6. And here, really the finish of a beautiful combination. And this is really one of the finest of today for sure. Queen h3, an easy move to spot, but here I think a lot of players would run out of attacking steam. They would stop calculating here or wouldn't even get here because they saw, that's it. The knight is guarding f1. There's no checkmates, and I just have to move my queen away. But here, Stephenson, the grandmaster with the black pieces, kept calculating, got to this moment, and found queen takes h2. Once in a lifetime type of combination here. King must only take, and a move which I find to be absolutely aesthetically just beautiful. Poetry on the chessboard. King f7. It's simple. It's unstoppable. And it's a king move to make white resign. The move rook to h8 checkmate really can't be stopped, even though white has two moves to do it. It's white's turn now, and then rook h8 is coming, and then the second white move, but you still cannot get in the way and stop this ladder checkmate on the edge of the board. An incredible combination, starting with knight f4, but who wouldn't just be drooling over the chance to play queen takes h2 in a real game? That's just a stunner. Unbelievably nice. Okay, similar one here. Grandmaster with the black pieces. Knight g6. Guess where he's heading? And a similar one to the last game. Knight f4. Exclamation point. This sacrifice is not accepted after pawn takes f4, g takes f4. Now the g file opens, and that just spells disaster for white. Way too many pieces. The queen, the king, bishop h3. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Black is winning. So instead, he plays captures temporarily, hits our queen. We take back. Nothing changed. Queen has to retreat. Queen f1. Rook h5. There were better moves, according to the engine, but still very, very in black's favor. Knight h2. Knight h3. Knight takes f2. Again, the queen and rook battery keeps that knight safe. And the king side is just crumbling around white. Queen e2. Rook takes h2. And this is forced checkmate. The queen and knight combine to force checkmate. He resigned here, but let's just play a move. Let's say king g2, queen h3, king g1, and queen h1. The rook guards the knight guards the queen, and the queen does the checkmate. Really nice coordination there, and another sacrifice with the knight on f4. Here, some familiar faces. Ivanchuk versus Mamedorov, 2007. And this was actually the World Blitz Championships. So we can make a few little allowances, but I really like the way this one went. You'd think that the white knight is on a great square. It's deep in the enemy territory, it's close to the king, it's protected, but Ivanchuk has even more aspirations. Retreats the knight, the engine's top move, in order to get it to an even better square. Better protected, better threats, hitting the queen, really, really scary. And if you can sneak a queen or a rook in there, or both, this would be absolutely curtains for black. Queen f6, you had to move the queen. Queen a5, coming for that pawn on c7 and check in the 7th rank. And that would be just about over. b6. Queen d5, check. He blocks with the queen, but white doesn't want to trade queens. White, on the attack, wants to keep the material alive. Black also doesn't want to exchange rooks, giving white the open h-file, and black is really running out of moves. Queen d7, rook h5. I love this type of move. Now, black answers with knight f4 for our purposes today. Nice, but it doesn't help. I just want to point out that rook takes rook is no help for black. Let's say knight e7 or even knight f4 again. This pawn is now a part of the attack. We also have a move like pawn takes e5, threatening winning a pawn, but also exploiting the pin. Everything looking great. But knight f4 just isn't it. Rook takes g5, another pawn in white's pocket, and threatening rook g7 deadly. King f6, rook g7 anyway. Rook h2, but that's not nearly enough. g5 doesn't even take the queen. And d5. That forces checkmate on the next move. The only move is knight taking it. And let's say c-pawn takes would probably be the most picturesque checkmate. Let's put that on the board. You can take with the queen, of course, but c takes. I think it's an unwritten rule in chess. When you can take with checkmate 2 pieces, you should always take with the smaller piece. Checkmating with the smaller piece is somehow a little more proper. Unwritten chess etiquette. On the 40th move, this would have been checkmate. Another one, and the knight still stands on its superior outpost, knight f5. Keep this in mind, folks, whether you have only a few pieces working together, like Morphe, or you have a whole attack brewing like this one, the knight on f4 or f5, depending which color you are, is an extremely strong attacking post. To get a knight on this square with a combined attack is very, very valuable. Hope that helped, folks. And again, gonna do some alternating lessons like this, as well as some interesting and exciting chess games. Any thoughts or suggestions or topics you want to see, send them my way. I'm always looking for great chess content. So thank you again, folks, and do appreciate the support.